And we are live.
Oh, excellent. All right. It looks like I will be hosting the Hangout today. I just want to welcome all of our property noodlers that may or may not be on this Hangout. Welcome you all to the Hangout. Those of you who are here, as you guys know, Paul and I host these Hangouts every new op day, Wednesday and Friday. And this morning, we talking about the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And the reason we discussed this book and we started getting into this a few weeks back. This is just kind of a reiteration for those of you who are joining us here, possibly for the first time. The reason we talk about this How to Win Friends and Influence People book is because this is basically the guideline, the script, the system, if you will, for dealing with people. And dealing with people is what we do day in and day out here with Sell a House Arizona, because we are in real estate, wholesale real estate. And typically the coup de grace, the big piece of this business is dealing with people. You know, you could take a ton of online courses and you're going to hear the same thing when you're getting into real estate, especially when you're beginning and you want to get into this business as a wholesaler. You're looking for the motivated seller, the person that has distressed property. And when I use the term distressed, I'm not just referring to condition of the actual physical structure of the property. I'm talking about the paper mess to the deed on that title. Could be foreclosure, could be taxes, it could be an issue with the HOA, it could be a number of things that's putting those people into a position that motivates them to sell this house. Well, you know, that's all fine and dandy. You know, find the motivated seller. That's all you got to do to wholesale property. However, there's two key elements, the most important elements really in wholesale real estate, besides just the motivated seller. Because great, you found them. Now what do? You have to know how to market yourself to them and sell them on the idea and make them feel comfortable in selling you that home. And just because you found a motivated seller or you have a list of motivated seller or whatever your strategy is for reaching out to these people, once they get into touch, once they contact you or once you contact them, what do you say to them? How do you deal with them? How do you work with that person? How do you make them feel comfortable with you? Well, that all comes down to your ability to communicate with them. And that's why we talk about this book, because this is a communication must-have how-to handbook. How to Win Friends and Influence People is a handbook on how to communicate with other people. You know, there's one concept that you should kind of keep in your mind from the get-go. One of my mentors has drilled this idea into my head over the last couple of years, and that is everybody has their mind and focused into one radio station, WIIFM. What's in it for me? So right out the gate, you always have to negotiate or communicate with a motivated seller from the standpoint that they're looking out for themselves. They're looking out for what's in their best interest, and they're looking to feel comfortable with whatever it is you have to offer them. You have to make them feel like they're winning. You got to take their losing situation and turn it into something positive. And you do that by taking a kind of an empathetic, sympathetic standpoint and listening to what their problem is. And another little tip as we go through this book, and another kind of little thing to keep in your mind besides my last point, is we were given 2 ears and 2 ears and 1 mouth. I almost said 2 ears and 2 mouths. That would be a weird thing, wouldn't it? We're given 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we have to learn to use those in proportion to each other. And we're supposed to listen to other people. I mean, this stuff does sound simple, right? But actually, for a lot of people out there, it's quite difficult. But the wonderful news is communication, people skills, these are learnable skills. Sure, there's those people that just seem like they're naturals at it. But you know what? Quite honestly, anyone who's, that may be natural, they're also hone their skills to become even better at what they're good at. And that goes for sales, and that goes for people skills and communications as well. I had a buddy of mine, Patrick, his name was, years ago. Haven't seen him in a couple number of years. I don't know if you ever catch me on here, Patrick. You know who you are. You should send me an email and let's get back in touch here. He was a really funny guy. Everybody thought he was hilarious and so witty and off the cuff. And he always seemed like no matter what the situation, this guy always had the funniest one-liner. This guy always cracked the best joke appropriate to the situation and was just really good at making people laugh. I, being one of his best friends, the funny thing about it, because he told me this, is that he actually prepared his jokes just as a stand-up comic would. He did the same thing because he knew his allure to people. He knew his ability to make friends was to show his wittiness and show his funny side, to break ice and make new friends and make people feel comfortable. He literally practiced, and he would sit and create the material. He was witty, he was smart, he was funny, he was off the cuff, but he was those things because he prepared himself in advance. True story. He would make up jokes. He would even tell me, we'd be in a situation hanging out and something would come up, and he would man, what a funny situation, or what a great idea for me to come up with a whole bunch of jokes and quips related to this one situation. He'd literally go home and start making up new material just in case that situation ever came up again. He would have material just to feed into the situation, feed into the joke, and get people laughing and come off like he's witty and off the cuff. And this is true of comedians as well, is that their whole point of what they're doing up on stage is an act. It is pre-planned jokes. It is a pre-planned script. It is practiced, and it is honed in to look like it comes out naturally and off the cuff. The same comedian that goes around the country and does 300 gigs a year, for the most part, almost verbatim, does those same jokes day in, day out at every single venue that they go to. It's an act. It is something that is scripted, something that is worked on, and something that is practiced and honed in and made to seem, every time they deliver that act, it comes out natural, it comes out comfortable. It doesn't sound like they're acting. It doesn't sound forced or like a script. It's because they practice it. That is the point I'm trying to make here, is that these people skills, your ability to deal with and negotiate those motivated sellers, stems from your ability to kind of prepare in advance. And one of the ways you can prepare in advance is, coming on these hangouts every new op day at least. And for those of you who are new op day is Monday. I don't like using that word because so many people dread Mondays. So I look at it as a new opportunity. It's a whole fresh session ahead of us. So that's why I use that word. I'll move forward from that because I can go into a lot about that. But that's this, so I'm just kind of setting this thing up to explain to you why this book here, How to Win Friends and Influence People, is so important. We've been on this book for a couple weeks now, and we've already gone over chapters 1 and chapters 2. But this is our guideline. This is our system. And the point I'm trying to make is that you need to start preparing yourself before you even talk. If you're new at this, before you even talk to your first seller, even if you are a seasoned pro, you should always be looking to get better at what you do. And quite frankly, whenever I pick up the phone and I talk to a motivated seller, or whenever I go into someone's home to make them an offer, I am actually going there and I'm performing an act. much like the comedian, I'm going in there with a routine. I'm going in there with a pitch, whatever you want to call it, a routine that I do almost verbatim every single time that I go in and meet with a seller. I go in there, I do a routine. I go in there, I know what questions I'm going to ask, pre-planned questions. That's another idea that you need to drill into your hand is no matter what type of sales you're in, pre-planned questions. You know what you're going to ask to get people leading towards the outcome you want, which in this case is signature on paper, selling me the home. So I have pre-planned questions that I use to lead people to the yes, lead people to accepting my offer and opening their doors to me and dropping their guard and allowing me into their lives to help them relieve themselves of this distressing property that's encumbering their lives. That's what we're looking for, motivated sellers. So, you know, this is all about preparation, and this is all about practice and being ready in advance. And this will do multiple things for you. Number one, it'll raise your closing rates exponentially. You know, you're prepared, you've done it, you've practiced it, you have your pre-planned questions, your script, you know how to present your offer to the seller, you know how to inform them about the situation their property's in, you have the knowledge. That also gives you the confidence. It also gives you the ability to be truthful. And these are qualities that you can learn or expand upon and make better through preparation. Excuse me, got a little itch on my nose. These are live events, so you might see me scratch my nose. You might see me cough a little bit. You know, there's no going back and editing live. There's no going back and editing live. Think about that too when you're going and you're sitting down and meeting with your seller. You kind of got one shot at this thing, so that's why you want to be prepared. And then through that preparation, you'll also have a lot of confidence. So with that being said, there's a couple things I want to go through here in this book. I know today we're really supposed to be starting chapter 3. We've got a few minutes left, about 20 minutes left of the hangout. We might get there. However, there's just a couple of points that I want to make about chapters 1 and 2 before we move forward. You know, I love the title of chapter 1 of the How to Win Friends and Influence book. Too bad Paul isn't on here today because I just love getting his feedback and going back and forth with him. He had another obligation he had to get to this morning. But you know, the name of this chapter is If You Want to Gather Honey, Don't Kick Over the Beehive. You know what? That's kind of a I like that. Ponder that idea, you know, ponder that idea a little bit in your head and what that means. You know, if you want honey, don't kick over the beehive. That basically, you know, you want to get honey out of there, you go kick over that beehive, what's going to happen to you? You're going to get stung. You're going to get bitten. You're going to get attacked. You're not going to make friends. In fact, you're going to make enemies with a whole colony of bees. You know, there's professional beekeepers out there who know how to work with bees, farm them, approach them, and, you know, farm the honey without getting stung, okay? Well, we're not beekeepers, but in a manner of speaking, we kind of have a similar job. We have motivated sellers that are scouring the hive out there all over Phoenix in these houses, and we want to go, and what we want to do is go in there and extract a deal from them. So, you know, we're not going to come over there and deal with them aggressive. We're not going to go over there knowing that their property is in a distressed situation and criticize them or condemn them or get in their face or make them feel poorly about the situation that they find themselves in. You know what? I've got a great real life example to share about this concept here. And that's the principle of chapter 1 before I get into my example of this is, you know, if you want honey, don't kick over the beehive, which means you don't go into a negotiation or a sale. It looks like Paul is going to be joining us here. Aggressively, you go in there and you never, and the principle here is you don't criticize, condemn, or put people down in a sales situation. And when we're dealing with wholesale real estate, when we're dealing with a motivated seller, these people are going to be making every excuse in the world about why their property ended up in foreclosure. They're going to weave a tale of woe, and it's your job to listen and make them feel empowered, make them feel good about selling you the house. Never criticize or put them down or even call them on the fact that the situation they're in isn't their fault, because it's really not the appropriate time for that. You're trying to win influence and make a friend here, and that's not how you do it. Before I let Paul jump in, I don't even know if he was able to really listen, but he could probably definitely weigh in on this a little bit when I go through this example. Two of our team members, Lisa and Daniel. If you're watching, welcome to the Hangout, Lisa and Daniel. Recently approached a seller whose home is in pre-foreclosure with the bank. And when they got there, the person was kind of immediately standoffish with them before they really even had a chance to open their mouth and offer the position and give them the approach that our company takes, which is always about helping people before we talk to them about buying the house. Because you know what? Maybe they don't want to sell the house, but that's their only solution. So if you go in there and that's the first and only option you offer them, it might cut you off from that person giving you a call 2 weeks before that auction when the house when they're not going to be able to save the house. Well, apparently, and they were able to siphon this by turning the woman around very slightly. She still really didn't fully open up to them and, and invite them in, so to speak, because a previous investor, because we're not the only ones that talk to people in pre-foreclosure, had approached them very aggressively with kind of a pitch that you're in a situation that you can't solve and you're going to lose this house. And he was kicking the beehive, and he kind of ruined it for even us to go in and turn these people around, because left a very sour taste in these people's mouth about what us entrepreneurial type wholesalers are doing when we're out there. And another example, recently, about 2 weeks ago, I myself personally visited a person in the same thing. Pre-foreclosure wasn't the same person that Lisa and Daniel had approached, but I approached a person as well that was in pre-foreclosure. She was a little bit nicer to me, it sounded like, than the woman was with Lisa and Daniel, but she was very matter of fact about, I don't want you coming to my door again. You've been knocking on my door, leaving me letters and talking to all my neighbors and telling them about my personal business, about my foreclosure with the bank, and I don't appreciate you going to my neighbors and telling them that I'm going to be losing my house. And I was, I assured them, like, ma'am, I would never go to your neighbors and tell them your personal business about losing your house. And ma'am, I'm actually not here to tell you that you're losing your house. I'm here to offer you some information that may help you save your home if that's what you intend to do, because I'm with a real estate company that offers solutions. Yes, we do buy houses, but we're really about helping people. And I'd love to get you on the phone with my partner, Paul, because he really knows a lot about foreclosure and dealing with the banks. She opened up to me a little bit, but she's like, you know what? I really got this handled. You can leave your information. And if it doesn't look like we'll be able to work this out, definitely be giving your business partner, Paul, a call. You know why? Because I didn't go in there kicking over the honey. Do you see the little change I made on going in there and telling this person they're going to lose their house? I said, well, that's good, because the good news is I'm not here to tell you you're going to lose your house. I'm here to give you some information that may help you save your house. So think about that. We're not there to be aggressive with people. You don't want to condemn, criticize, or put people down for things, because it doesn't get you anywhere. Paul's just joined us here. I'm going to go ahead and throw this over to you, Paul, to say good morning. I basically just reiterated some points from chapter 1, and I think you got to hear the stories I just shared, so I'm sure that you would have something that you could throw in here to kind of weigh in on that.
I love what you just said about how taking that situation and being able to turn it around, because that's one of the most difficult situations that there is to turn around. And the fact that the lady that Lisa and Daniel came across, having already been, you know, soured by a previous investor who had already been there, forcing negativity on this person, really just putting a bad taste in her mouth about anybody and everybody, and looking at the idea of how to turn that sort of a situation around as well too. I think what you just said right there is definitely something we need to enhance within the group. There is the whole idea of, hey, listen, I'm not here to tell you all about how, selling your house and how we can buy your house and all that. I'm here to just offer you some information about how you might some information that might be able to help you save this house if that's what your priority is. And the whole idea of suggesting a third endorsing a third party, we've talked about that before, is an awesome way to sort of build credibility that it's not, hey, I'm not the guy here that is that you need to talk to. There's I have a guy that we have a guy on the team who is versed in foreclosure and knows a lot of information, who can really be helpful, and that third party endorsement can be a big thing. The one thing that I would add into that we might want to incorporate there is that an idea of reinforcing to them at that point in time, reinforcing to them a little bit about how the banks aren't giving you any answers. I mean, I guarantee you right now, you probably have no clue what's going to happen in 2 weeks, whether or not you're actually going to be able to keep your home or they are going to sell it. And Paul could give you a pretty good idea as to what you could expect. Might help relieve a little bit of the stress right now, something along those lines. Hey, listen, I mean, wouldn't it be nice to at least have a fairly good idea of what you can expect within the next 2 weeks, something like that. And I would strongly suggest that we set up an appointment right now, and we can discuss your situation a little bit further and give you a pretty clear picture of what is most likely to be happening here. So that's something that could be added in there as far as just like you said, not forcing anything down their throats and just offering them something else that might be helpful. And the whole idea of being able to potentially relieve the stress of the unknown. We're down to 2 weeks here, and we still don't know squat because the banks don't tell us shit. Being able to at least have some of that stress relief might be the key factor to get somebody to make that phone call and discuss the situation. And the whole idea of establishing a backup plan. What if? I mean, I know the banks haven't told you anything. What if they come back and say no? Are you prepared for that? Now's a time when you might want to be looking at putting in place a backup plan, and a backup plan doesn't necessarily have to include selling your house. There could be another backup plan that you could pursue to potentially keep your house. So maybe these are some things that you might want to look at right now, and moving forward as we're getting close to this final day to help relieve some of the stress, and so you can put yourself in a position of feeling a little bit more of a position of power and feeling more confident about what you've got going on here moving forward. So all some things that we could definitely work on putting into our approach with some people. And I think that anybody that's watching this and listening to this could certainly use, because the bank foreclosure people are absolutely by far the most difficult to get through to, especially at any stage of the game. You catch them pre-NOD. If you have lists that you're out there doing pre-NODs, I don't know if that's available or not, but at that point especially, people are really, really, all about denial, and we got this worked out, and we're going to make it happen. And then post-NOD, once they've gotten that notice that, hey, you've got 90 days, Jack, and it's going to be sold, they're still there to get them out of that mode at that point in time is very, very difficult. And then, you know, even at any point in time, getting right down to the final 2 weeks, you know, it's really difficult to get them out of that thought process that, oh, we've got it worked out, just because they're talking to the bank. You know, they're talking to their lender. And the sad thing is the lender on the other side of the coin, you got to understand this. See, this is where their mindset comes from. The lender's telling them on the phone, oh, don't worry about it, we're working on it. Or you're going to be okay, we're working on it. The lender's actually telling them, you know, those are the words coming out of the lender's mouth. So they feel like they got it under control because they're talking with their lender. But the lender ain't doing jack. The lender isn't telling them anything. They're telling them what they want to hear. They're not telling them anything that what's really actually happening, which is the fact that we're going over your numbers, because other than what your numbers are on these papers right here, you are nothing more to us than that. And if your numbers don't work out, you're not going to get squat from us. If your numbers work out, then we're going to be willing to help you. But right now we're in the process of looking at your numbers, and that's it. And we don't have any answers for you whatsoever until we see the bottom line. And if the bottom line works for us, then we'll be willing to help you. Otherwise, forget it. So that's kind of what's going on the backside. On the front side, you know, they're getting, the people are hearing from the bank, oh, don't worry about it, we're working on it. You know, so they feel like they got it going on and they got it handled. And then it comes right down to the last minute and the bank says, sorry, dude, you didn't qualify.
Yeah. And it happens so often that we've really refined our approach, because here's the deal. As Paul kind of pointed out, wow, this is going into a conversation about how to deal with pre-foreclosure sellers. You know what? Yeah. Not a bad topic to talk about.
I don't know where you started from, but yeah.
First of all, there's a time and a place to kind of get aggressive with a seller. And it's knowing people's personalities. It's also knowing the situation when the time is right. I'm going to bring the focus back from this conversation a little bit back to, you know, the concepts from How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that is how to get through to somebody when you're dealing with them when they're in denial. Now, you know, Paul and I take kind of a in-your-face kind of approach to our business. You know, we don't just put a bunch of We Buy Houses ads on Craigslist. We don't put a whole bunch of bandit signs all over town. We don't have billboards. And we, gosh dear darn, don't really even have much of a presence online. Every once in a while, we'll receive a call from our website. However, how is it that we're doing, you know, 8 to 10 deals, closing 8 to 10 deals a month? So we have a different approach that other people really aren't utilizing. I mean, we do mailers and postcards, but really that's like, that's not even where most of our deals come from. And you know what? 8 to 10 deals, you know, 100 plus deals a year, that's only half of what we can do if we have some more people join the team. However, I'm not going to get into that. You can always find out more about how to, you know, work with Paul and I at PropertyNoodlers@gmail. But as relating this thing is, okay, before we even get to the conversations with the bank and we work with these people, how do we get through to them? Because as I stated earlier, people are tuned into what's in it for me. And when we're approaching somebody that's in a situation that they're not comfortable with, that they're in denial about, starting that off aggressively in your face. Hey, I'm a guy, I buy houses. I'm here to tell you that your house is in foreclosure. You're going to lose it, and but you should sell it to me. You know, that approach might work on occasion. But I find that we have more success if we enter into that conversation, not throwing any more fear into these people's faces that they already have, pushing them further into denial. You know, you have a wall when you're dealing with somebody that you're trying to persuade to your way of thinking, especially when they're a stranger and it's a cold call, a cold sale. You're at that person's house or they're calling you for the first time. There's a barrier. There's a defense up. And a pre-foreclosure, it's an embarrassing situation for people. You know, going in there like an attack dog to just beat them up even further about something that, quite frankly, is probably not only, you know, put a lot of stress on their life, but really diminish their self-confidence, and to go in there and try to get them to sell you the house by diminishing it even further, to me is a fool's errand. You know, we had a guy on our team that kind of took that approach, and he was extremely unsuccessful. And needless to say, he's no longer here with Property Noodlers, because, you know, he wasn't getting it. But you go in there and you approach people with a little sympathy and compassion and an open ear, and offer the help before you ask for the sale. And it helps to break down their doors, and it helps to bring, you know, tear down that wall. You know, it helps to open them up, make them feel comfortable and open to doing business with you in the first place. And as I pointed out, you know, going in there to offer help, yeah, you know, if we're going to get the deal, we're going to get the deal by being their friend, because pre-foreclosure nowadays is not like it was 5 years ago, where if I went to 20 pre-foreclosure sellers, half of them were going to lose those homes, and half of those people would actually sell. The other half are just going to let it go. The other half, maybe we're going to pull it together somehow and save their home. Nowadays, I'd say 1 out of every 20, 1 out of 25 pre-foreclosure homes with equity. Because we're not doing, we personally, we don't do short sales, and we don't do a lot of subject to, and we're not taking we're not taking, working with over encumbered loans here. We're dealing with people with enough equity to make a sale happen. First of all, that's who we're going to. And one out of 20 people, I would say, are going to lose their homes to foreclosure. And, a lot of the properties that we're watching and observing nowadays are only losing that property because the people that come to them aren't appealing to their side. Like, for a property with equity to go full time through to foreclosure means that those sellers aren't being approached in the proper way. They need to be approached with a helping hand. And okay, I know your intention is to save this property, but if you wait to the very end, you're going to lose it. I'm here today to offer you just some information, some help, and some guidance, and you know, and give you the opportunity, hopefully with some of our information, that you could be successful at saving your home. And what's the worst case scenario? You actually give them some information. They end up keeping the home because of you and not selling you the home, and you didn't make any money. That is just as good as making money. And Paul and I could both attest to the fact that it seems like for every 1 or 2 people that we actually help stay in a home, it's followed by 2 or 3 of the most ridiculously big paychecks we ever got for doing a wholesale deal. Every time. Yep. Every time. So it's like you get in what you get out what you put in. And if you really go out there with the approach of helping people, and so what? I didn't get this deal because I told this person the truth and I helped them to save this home and I didn't make a dime. You get paid back in spades. So go in there. It's all about helping people. I know we didn't even get out of reiterating chapter 1, but the concept is here today. The message here today is if you want honey, don't kick over the beehive. Don't go in there aggressively. Don't go into there, you know, condemning, blaming, and criticizing people. Now, I'm not saying you don't get aggressive in negotiation, but there's a time and a place that calls for that type of attitude towards the sale. But breaking down people's barriers, that's not the way to do it. So I see we're actually 5 minutes over time. I'm going to toss it back to Paul for a final thought, and you can close this out.
I was just going to say, if you want to even get to negotiation, that's what you got to be doing, is what John's talking about right there, is not kicking over the beehive, attracting them to you with your sweetness, so to speak, of the honey, you know, because that's it. Otherwise, you're never even going to get to negotiations. You're never going to have a chance at that deal. So with that, I think that I didn't catch the first part of this because I had a phone call, but finishing out, listening to John here, I'm sure the beginning of it was just as powerful as the end was, and some great information there. dealing with pre-foreclosure people. You know, it's a different world out there, guys, and it's a different ball game. You don't have 1,000 pre-foreclosures on each block that, you know, you can just basically walk in there and say, look, this is the way it is, and this is what's going to happen, and we'll buy your house from you because it's the only thing you got left. Because there's just not that many people out there that, you know, need, you know, are that desperate for, you know, that kind of an answer. So you need to up your game a little bit and figure out how to befriend people before pissing them off, and maybe you might get some more deals. So with that, oh universe, I ask not for more riches, but for more wisdom with which to make better use of the riches given to me at birth, consisting of the power to control and direct my own mind to whatever end I might desire. And I want to thank everybody for being here on this negotiating new op day. And next session, we will definitely move on in the How to Win Friends and Influence People book by Dale Carnegie, and we're moving on to chapter 3. So if you haven't, we're not too far along. You can very quickly and easily catch up here and be on board with learning how to generate some people skills that'll help you get more deals. All right, that's it for Sell a House Wholesale Real Estate Investing, number 179. See you back here on Wisdom Wednesday.